Hey, what's going on, everyone? Alex here. On today's podcast, I'm going to talk about how I basically integrate God in my business and what it looks like for me to live out the Christian lifestyle as a business owner, what that looks like on the outside, and how that affects my day-to-day operations. Let's dive in. All right, so one of the things that I talk about on my personal profile pretty openly is my Christian faith. And I want to dive into that today on the podcast. I've had a lot of conversations lately with other business owners who are also men and women of faith, and they struggle with how do I integrate God into my business? How do I talk about God without turning people away? And what does it look like to have a business where God is in control of my day-to-day operations, but I'm also still responsible for what happens? So I'm going to do the best that I can to share what I believe. And for those of you listening, I encourage a dialogue on this. You know, I may say some things that you don't agree with. That's all good. That's why we're all, working together to kind of figure this out. For those of you that are listening and like, man, I really like what he has to say, I'm going to recommend some books to read, some resources at the end of this episode, and some friends that I've met that I would encourage you to also connect with online. So let's talk about integrating God into business and what that looks like. So there's a couple different areas where I work to put God first in my day-to-day life and inside of my business. First thing is how I start my day. I really believe it's important to start my day with devotion time. It's like one-on-one time, me and the Bible, me and my prayer time. It helps me kind of get centered to really focus on what I'm going to do during the day. And I try to follow a Bible reading plan. And so I was doing just reading the Bible, through the year. So I didn't do as well as I want to all the time, but that's my goal. And then I have some prayer time. My prayer time is, sometimes it's long, sometimes it's short, but it's important to me to start every day that way. So that's how I start it. And then, as far as how do I integrate God into the regular day-to-day stuff, one of the things that I learned from a close friend of mine, Andy Mason, who I'm definitely blessed to be in his life. He runs Heaven in Business out here. One of the things that he said that I learned actually at a Heaven in Business meeting, because that's the name of the events that they have out here, is asking God what he would do in certain situations. So we all have different areas that pop up that are a little tough. I just had one recently actually where I had to let an employee go, and that's never fun. And so I knew based on my business education and just some of the things that were coming up that I was not able to keep this employee. And so it just wasn't going to work out. And so what I did after I made that decision, or after I felt that, okay, this is the direction I'm going to go, is I just stopped and I prayed. I didn't make any rash decisions. I just asked, like, God, what would you do in this situation? And how should I handle this? And then I just listened. I didn't take any action right away. I sought counsel from people that I trusted, and I knew that they were looking out not only for my best interest, but also for the best interests of the individual. And I was able to, I really felt like God was leading me towards, still continuing to let this individual go, but also with the words and actions that, would not wound our friendship or cause there to be any division between us. And so the conversation went really well, by the way. So him and I are still friends. We shook hands on it. We know that, we're doing the right thing, not only for each other, but also for the business. And it was good. He was disappointed, but he understood. So that's like a real life, application of how I integrate God into my business. Let's talk about the day-to-day stuff. I'm gonna share, for me, it's hard to figure out how to integrate God in the day-to-day stuff of business, especially when it comes to, some of the more minutia, and so what I do, my mindset is I don't stop and ask for every little thing. I don't pray about some of the repetitive tasks that happen on a day-to-day basis. But for me, some of the ways that I acknowledge God during the day in my business is when I make a sale. I consciously thank Him. When I have something coming up that's a struggle or things that I don't know what to do, I ask God what He would do in this situation. I ask for wisdom. When I see big decisions coming down the road, whether it's hiring somebody, whether it's having to let somebody go, I really make it a point to just stop and pray and see what I feel like God is leading me to do next. So that's the day-to-day. Now, how do you carry this out? What's the application over? This is a marketing podcast, and we're talking about Christian faith, but I really think it's important, and I've gotten I've had a lot of good conversations lately. So what does it look like for you? Well, I don't want you to interpret my kind of to-do list as me trying to tell you how to have your own relationship with God. So let me just start off with that. So I'm going to give you some ideas. So hope that's fair. So the first thing is I highly recommend, starting each day with some one-on-one time with God. That could be Bible reading. That could be prayer time. I know some people every single day, they fast their morning meal. They've gotten into a habit of fasting a meal a day. And instead of eating, they spend that breakfast time just with their one-on-one time with God. So I thought that was pretty cool. The other thing that I recommend doing is asking God questions. And the more specific, the better. Like when I was letting this individual go that I had to, release, I was like, what can I say to him that would make him know that I really appreciate and admire him as a human being, but it's just not going to work out right now. How can I make this not hurt as bad as it could? And so I was very specific in my question. I believe God gave me a really specific answer, and I really believe God talks to us. And so that was really cool. The other thing that I do is but I'm very conscious of how I talk to my prospects and clients, especially in the marketing world. There's so much hype and stuff around marketing that I want to make sure that I'm never, that I'm always integrous, that I'm never, I don't use my faith as a selling point. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I don't want it to feel like it's one of the benefits of working with me. I don't know. I struggle with when and where to bring up my faith, but I do try to operate as if God was in the room listening to my conversation. If he was sitting, it's hard for you to see the office right now, but if he was sitting right across from me at the empty chair that's in my office, and I was talking to a prospect about the possible project that they could hire us for, would he listen in on that conversation and kind of nod and give me a thumbs up and like, all right, I like that? Or would he look at me and be like, we should probably talk after this phone call's done? So that's how I try to integrate God. And I want to introduce some resources for you. Some of the people that I'm about to share, many of them have written books. I recommend going on Amazon and buying some that you like, and for the ones that you don't, if you're like, that doesn't appeal to me, that's not a fit, then it's all good. So the first one that I recommend that I really enjoy, that really blessed me, was written by a guy named Kris Vallotton. He spells his name with a K, Kris, and it's called Poverty, Riches, and Wealth. Really good book about looking at money. So I recommend grabbing that one. I thought that was really good. And then also, I mentioned before, Andy Mason. He heads up Heaven in Business, and he also wrote a book. And so the name of his book, there's a couple with him, but the latest one is God with You at Work. Really good. Recommend that one. He wrote another one that I have not read yet, but he has referenced it a lot in his talks, and it's really blessed me. It's called Dream Culture, How to Dream with God. So that's really good. Andy Mason, Andy, last name Mason, Mason. So he's got a couple that I recommend. And then my man Chris Valentin talks about poverty, riches, and wealth. If you have any other resources that you think I should add to my podcast page on this episode, please let me know. I'm happy to add other resources to the page and be introduced to other books that I could read. So I hope this conversation was edifying and encouraging to you. I'd love your feedback. Go ahead and reach out to me over Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, or email. And let's continue the conversation. Have a great day.